So, I want you to picture something with me for a second.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's high noon, blistering heat on the N1 highway in South Africa.
Yeah.
You're driving along, maybe a bit tired, and suddenly you check your rear view mirror.
Always a bit nerve-wracking on the N1.
Right. Because there is this massive 18-wheeler thundering up behind you. It pulls into the passing lane, engine roaring, the trailer's tarped down tight, packed to the brim with cargo.
Oh, yeah.
The wheels are turning, the diesel is burning, and that driver is just laser-focused on the road ahead. Now, to anyone watching from the roadside, or even to us in our cars, that truck looks like the absolute definition of industrial success.
It does. It's, the classic image of the economy in motion. It's loud, it's visible, it's powerful. And instinctively, our brains just tell us, hey, that business is making money.
Motion equals money. That's the default assumption.
Yeah.
But here's a kicker, and honestly, when I read this in the source material, it actually scared me a little bit.
It's pretty jarring.
It really is. According to the breakdown we are looking at today, there is a very real chance that the massive truck we just imagine, that symbol of strength, is actually a financial black hole.
Yeah.
It might be losing money with every single kilometer marker it passes.
Which sounds impossible, doesn't it? But that is the central paradox of the trucking industry, particularly in the South African context.
Yeah.
You can be the busiest fleet on the road, trucks everywhere, drivers working overtime, and you can still be driving straight off a financial cliff.
And that is exactly the tension we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We are looking at a really heavy-hitting piece by Greystride titled The Hidden Traps That Push Trucking Companies into Financial Distress.
It's a great piece.
It is.
And I want to set the stage for you here. This isn't just for fleet owners or logistics managers. This is basically a masterclass for anyone who wants to understand the difference between being busy and being valuable. Because, as we are going to see, those are two very, very different things. Greystride frames this beautifully. They argue that financial distress in this industry rarely happens because of one giant explosion.
Like a massive lawsuit or something.
Exactly, or a terminal crash. It's much quieter than that. It builds gradually, almost invisibly, through what they call hidden structural issues. It's death by 1,000 cuts, or I guess in this case, 1,000 unbilled kilometers.
So our mission today is to find those cuts. We're going to walk through the 7 hidden traps that drain profitability. And more importantly, we're going to look at how to stop the bleeding.
Right.
Because the source makes a pretty bold claim. They say distress doesn't have to be a death sentence. It can actually be the best thing that happens to a company if you catch it in time.
Precisely. It forces you to stop looking at the mechanics of the trucks and start looking at the physics of the money.
Let's get into the physics of the money then. Trap number 1. The source calls it the activity illusion.
The activity illusion.
This goes right back to our truck on the N1. The conflict between running busy and running profitable.
Yeah.
Because I think most people, myself included, assume that if the truck is full, the math just works out.
That is the most common and probably the most dangerous assumption in the game. You see full trucks, a packed schedule board in the office, drivers who never start moving. It feels like success.
Sure.
But often the bank account is just shrinking. The core issue here is how rates are set. Too often, operators set a price just to get the load, just to keep the wheels turning.
Without fully understanding their true cost per kilometer.
Exactly.
Now, true cost sounds like a simple accounting term, but I get the feeling it's a lot stickier than just, fuel plus driver wages.
It's much stickier. If you are only calculating fuel and wages, you are effectively running at a loss. You just don't know it yet. You are subsidizing the client. Greystride points out these hidden costs that get forgotten in the excitement of securing a contract. The big one is maintenance reserves. You aren't paying for that breakdown today, but you are consuming the truck's lifespan every meter it rolls.
So it's like an invisible debt you're accruing. You're using up the asset, but you aren't charging for the replacement of it.
Spot on. Take tires, for example. In the heavy haulage game, a set of tires is a massive capital expense.
Oh, I bet.
Every kilometer grinds a few cents off that rubber. If you aren't factoring that specific replacement cost into the weight you charge the client today, you are stealing from your future self.
You're giving the client a loan from your future tire fund.
Yes. And that's before we even talk about finance charges. The bank gets paid whether the truck is full, empty, or sitting in the yard.
Right.
This leads to a very strange, almost perverse dynamic regarding clients. We usually think a good client is just someone who gives us lots of work, but Greystride flips this entirely.
How so?
They say if you are giving a client discounts just to secure the load because they are nice or they keep you busy, or if their routes are underpriced because you don't want to rock the boat, they are actually a low-margin client.
So they're a bad client.
In financial terms, yes.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
You're working harder for them, putting more wear on your vehicles, creating more admin work, but you're making less margin. You're essentially paying for the privilege of moving their goods.
That's exactly it. Productivity without margin creates pressure, not progress. The shift here, and it's a critical one for any operator, is moving from chasing turnover to protecting margin.
You have to know your numbers?
Cold. You need to know that this specific load on this specific route yields this much profit after every single hidden cost is stripped away. Tires, oil, depreciation, all of it.
You can't manage what you don't measure. That seems to be the big theme here.
Yeah.
So let's move to trap number 2. This is a big one, and I think it applies to so many businesses, not just trucking. The confusion between profit and cash flow.
Ugh, the silent killer. It's the reason profitable companies go bust all the time.
How does that happen?
Well, you can look at your profit and loss statement at the end of the month and see a healthy profit. The accountant says, great job, you made money. But then you open your banking app to pay wages, and there is nothing there. Echoes.
It feels like a magic trick.
Yeah.
If the P&L says, I made a profit, where is the actual cash? Did it just evaporate?
It's stuck in the time gap.
The time gap.
Yeah. Greystride highlights the specific economic reality in South Africa's transport sector. Payment terms are often 30 to 60 days. That means you do the hard work today, you deliver the goods today, you burn the diesel today, but you don't see the cash for 2 months.
But the expenses, they don't wait 2 months. The petrol attendant isn't giving you 60-day terms.
Not a chance, and that is the trap. Diesel, which can be 40 to 50% of your operating costs, usually has to be paid upfront or on very, very short terms. Salaries are monthly. Finance installments are fixed, automatic, and totally unforgiving.
So cash is flowing out immediately, today, but flowing in slowly, months from now.
Exactly.
Which leads to what the source calls the growth paradox. It implies that if you get more business, this problem doesn't get better, it actually gets worse. That seems backwards. Usually growth cures everything.
It cures nothing if the structure is wrong.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you double your business tomorrow, congratulations, you have twice as many loads. You also double your diesel bill tomorrow.
Right.
You have to pay that cash now, but you won't see that double revenue for 60 days. You have to fund that 60-day gap out of your own pocket. So ironically, rapid growth can bankrupt a profitable company if they don't have the cash reserves to survive the gap they just created.
That is mind-blowing. Success can actually sink you if you aren't careful. It's like running faster on a treadmill that's consuming your oxygen.
Good.
So what's the fix here? How do you survive the gap?
Discipline and visibility. You need what the source calls weekly visibility. You can't just check the bank balance once a month and hope for the best. You need disciplined cash flow forecasting. You need to know exactly when the big diesel bill hits and exactly when client A is paying. And you need very tight debtor management. You have to chase those invoices. In this game, financial stability isn't about working harder. It's about controlling the timing of money.
Controlling the timing of money. I really love that phrasing. It turns the finance department into a strategic asset, not just scorekeepers.
Exactly.
Okay, trap number 3 connects directly to that growth paradox. It's called overtrading.
This is the trap of optimism. Transport is an exciting business. There is a tangible thrill in buying a new truck, branding it with your logo, seeing it parked in the yard.
It feels like winning.
It looks like empire building.
I can imagine. You see the fleet growing, you see the drivers in their uniforms, and you feel like a tycoon. It triggers that dopamine hit.
But here is the risk. Overtrading happens when you finance those new vehicles based purely on projected revenue.
The key word being projected.
Yes. You assume the contract will always renew. You assume the truck will run 24/7 without breaking down. You assume the economy will stay stable.
You're basically betting the farm on a perfect future. You're financing based on the absolute best-case scenario.
Precisely. And the trucking industry is anything but perfect. It's volatile. If one client delays payment or a contract ends unexpectedly, the whole house of cards wobbles.
Why does it wobble so fast?
Because you have committed to fixed monthly finance payments on those new trucks for the next 5 years. But the revenue you bet on isn't there. You haven't built reserves for downtime.
It's like buying a bigger house because you think you're going to get a promotion next year. If the promotion doesn't happen, you still have to pay the mortgage, and now you're in serious trouble.
That's the perfect analogy. The advice here from Greystride is stress testing. Before you expand, you have to ask the hard questions. What happens if this truck stands still for 2 weeks? What happens if diesel goes up 10%? What happens if the driver gets sick?
So expansion shouldn't expose the business to ruin. It requires conservative assumptions.
Right. Don't bet on a sunny forecast when you work in a storm.
Okay, speaking of betting on a single outcome, trap number 4 is about dependence. Specifically, the single client risk.
This is the false sense of security. Having one giant contract can feel amazing.
I'm sure it does.
It simplifies everything. One invoice, one relationship, steady work, full trucks. It feels safe because it's predictable.
But based on the pattern of these traps, where safety usually equals danger, I'm guessing this is actually a really vulnerable position.
It is extremely vulnerable. If one client represents, say, 80% of your revenue, they effectively own your business. They aren't just a client anymore, they are your boss.
Wow.
If they decide to renegotiate rates and squeeze you for 5% less, what can you do? You have to say yes. If they cancel the contract, you're finished. If the industry takes a downturn and they slow down production, your truck stands still.
You have zero leverage. You've handed the keys to your business over to someone else. You become a price taker, not a price maker.
Exactly. The solution is diversification. And the source makes a really key point here. Even small secondary contracts are valuable.
Even if they don't pay as much.
Even then. They might not be as glamorous as the big whale client, but they stabilize your income streams. And crucially, they give you negotiating power. If you can walk away from a bad deal because you have other work, you are in a much stronger position.
It's the old don't put all your eggs in one basket advice, but with 18-wheelers. It makes sense. If you lose the big client, the small ones keep the lights on while you pivot.
It buys you survival time. And in this industry, time is everything.
Okay, let's shift gears from the finance office over to the workshop. Trap number 5, maintenance as strategy.
This requires a major mindset shift. Most people, both in their personal lives and in business, view maintenance as a grudge purchase.
It's a bill.
It's a bill, it's an annoyance, it's an expense you try to minimize or delay as long as possible.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the mantra. Why spend money on a truck that's running perfectly fine?
And that phrase right there is the enemy of profitability in logistics. Greystride argues that maintenance is a strategic lever, not just a cost center. There is a massive, incredibly expensive difference between reactive maintenance and proactive maintenance.
Reactive meaning fixing it when it breaks down on the side of the road.
Yes, and that is the absolute most expensive way to fix a truck. Think about the cascading costs. If a truck blows a turbo on the N1 in the middle of the Karoo, you aren't just paying for the turbo.
What else are you paying for?
You are paying for the towing, which is incredibly expensive for heavy rigs. You are paying for emergency labor rates, which are always at a premium. You are paying penalties to the client for the missed delivery thought. And you have a driver sitting idle, earning a wage but generating zero revenue.
That one breakdown could basically wipe out the profit for the entire month on that route.
Easily. This is what they call deferred maintenance. You save money today by skipping a service, but you pay 10 times more later. It's a high-interest loan you take out against your own reliability.
So what's the shift?
The expert shift is to build a preventative schedule based on kilometers traveled. You use data to predict failures. If you know an alternator usually fails at 200,000 kilometers, you change it at 190,000. You don't wait. Reliability protects the margin.
That ties back perfectly to the idea of the activity illusion we started with. A broken truck is the ultimate lack of activity. It's essentially a giant metal paperweight.
Exactly.
Okay, trap number 6. This one is all about data. The source calls it the blindfold, or driving without a dashboard.
Imagine driving that massive truck we talked about at the beginning, but the dashboard is entirely blank.
That sounds terrifying.
No speedometer, no fuel gauge, no temperature gauge, no air pressure warnings. You are driving purely on instinct and vibration.
But the source says many businesses run exactly like that.
Surprisingly, yes. They operate purely on gut feel. They know things feel tight or cash feels low or the yard feels busy, but they don't know exactly why. They lack financial visibility.
They see the whole mountain, but they don't see the path.
That's a great way to put it.
So what does a proper dashboard actually look like for a transport company? What gauges do they need?
Well, it's not just looking at the bank balance. The source lists specific requirements. You need monthly management accounts, that's the baseline. But deeper than that, you need cost allocation per vehicle.
So knowing that truck A is making money, but truck B is losing money.
Exactly. If you look at the fleet as a whole, the winners hide the losers. Maybe your shiny new trucks are subsidizing the old ones that are burning oil. You need to see that.
Right.
You also need gross profit per route. Maybe the Durban run is wildly profitable, but the Cape Town run is bleeding cash due to fuel consumption on the hills or delays at the port. You need to see that granularity. And finally, debtor aging visibility, knowing exactly who owes you money and for how long.
So the real takeaway here is that financial visibility isn't just accounting, it's leadership. It replaces anxiety with clarity. If you know where the leak is, say, truck B on the Cape Town route, you can just plug it. If you're just generally anxious, you're paralyzed.
Well put. You can't fix a problem you can't see. And that leads us directly to the final trap. Trap number 7, the psychology of distress. This is the human element.
We often forget that businesses are run by people, and people have emotions. When that cash flow gap widens, and the creditors start calling, and the trucks are breaking down, what happens to the brain?
Pressure narrows your perspective. It induces panic. And when you are in a state of financial panic, you make terrible decisions. Greystride lists the classic mistakes made under pressure. It's basically a fight-or-flight response applied to finance.
Like taking any load at any rate just to get cash in the door.
Yes. The mindset becomes, I just need turnover. So you take a loss-making load just to see cash hit the account. Or you extend credit to risky clients just to get a sale on the books, even though they might never pay you.
That's dangerous.
Or the worst one, selling productive assets like your best trailers below market value just to make payroll. These are decisions that might solve a problem for 5 minutes, but destroy the business for the next 5 years.
It's a death spiral. You're digging the hole deeper while trying to climb out.
The antidote they suggest is counterintuitive. Step back before stepping forward. You have to separate temporary cash strain from structural problems. You cannot fix a structural problem like bad pricing with a panic reaction like selling a truck. You need a cool head.
Okay, so we've covered the 7 traps. The activity illusion, the cash flow gap, overtrading, dependence, maintenance, the blindfold, and finally the psychology of distress. Honestly, they are heavy. It makes the trucking industry sound like an absolute minefield.
It can be.
But the source material ends on a surprisingly hopeful note. They say financial distress is not the end.
No, in fact, they call it a turning point. This is a crucial perspective shift. Distress forces you to look at the harsh reality of your business. It strips away all the illusions. When you have no money, you can't lie to yourself about your margins. You have to face the music.
But a turnaround isn't about just slashing costs and firing everyone, is it? Because that seems to be the default reaction people have.
No, and that's a very common mistake. A real strategic turnaround is about restructuring. It's about identifying exactly which parts of the business are bleeding, which routes, which trucks, which clients, and stopping that specific bleed.
Surgical precision.
Yes. It involves restructuring cash flow, renegotiating terms with creditors, and rebuilding margins with absolute discipline. It's surgery, not butchery.
It's about fixing the machine, not just painting over the rust.
Exactly. The source notes that distress rarely happens overnight. It builds quietly, gradually, one overlooked decision at a time. The flip side of that is that success comes the exact same way, by fixing those small structural weaknesses one by one.
I really like that. It's cumulative. And let's be honest, the South African transport industry is incredibly tough. It's not for the faint-hearted.
It is incredibly resilient, though. The operators who survive and thrive are the ones who confront these structural weaknesses early. They don't wait for the engine to blow. They are constantly tuning the business model. They treat the business model with the same respect they treat their physical engines.
So, to recap our deep dive today for you listening, you can be busy without being profitable. That's the activity illusion. You can be profitable without having cash. That's the cash flow gap. And real success lies in having the dashboard, the visibility to know the difference, and the discipline to actually act on it.
That's the key. Whether it's understanding the true cost per kilometer, managing the cash flow gap, or having the discipline to turn down a bad load, it all comes down to visibility and structure.
It's a powerful lesson. And, as we wrap up here, I'm thinking about this idea of a maintenance schedule, but for things other than trucks.
How do you mean?
Well, think about our own lives, with our energy, our money, or our time. We so often wait for the breakdown, a burnout, a health scare, a financial crisis, before we stop to fix things. We basically practice deferred maintenance on ourselves.
Oh, that's incredibly true.
We run busy schedules, but we aren't creating value.
That's a profound connection. We run busy, but are we running profitable in terms of our well-being?
Exactly. What if we treated our own resources like a smart fleet manager treats a truck? fixing the small leaks before the engine blows, checking the dashboard regularly instead of just driving blind. It's definitely something for you to think about.
It certainly is.
If you want to dive deeper into the specifics of these financial traps, or if you run a business and need to see the math for yourself, I highly recommend checking out the Greystride source material. It is a fantastic, eye-opening read. Thank you for riding along with us on this deep dive today. Drive safe, and we'll catch you on the next one.